control, but it started with cuts to the public service by the Conservatives. This was actually cemented by Michael Wernick, who testified at Government Operations Committee, saying that when the Conservatives gutted, senior public officials in 2012, that this caused huge problems when it comes to leadership, and now it's costing us in outsourcing to outside consultants to fill the void. The other thing is, we heard when the Conservatives were on the witch hunt around McKinsey, is that we couldn't get some information from redacted documents. And it started with government policy in the Privy Council office that was set by the Conservatives. You can't make this stuff up. Conservatives were upset because they couldn't get information. I support that document shouldn't be redacted before committee, but it started with their own policies. And this was affirmed at committee by the Privy Council office. So they know full well that they implemented policies that were going to make it difficult for future governments. Then they tried to use that as an excuse to not getting access to information. This started with the Conservatives. Now I'm going to go to what's going on with Mr. McDonald and Mr. Utano, because I saw these two witnesses testify before us at our committee. We tried to get some answers, and they were absolutely grilled by the Conservatives. They were attacked by the Conservatives when they testified. There is no way that anyone could watch the tape of those committees and believe that now the Conservatives have their best interests at heart. That is absolutely hard to believe, when it comes to what really took place there. Now, I want to talk about reprisals as well. And I want to talk about policies that we've seen and failures to address protecting people like Mr. McDonald or Mr. Utano or any public servant that wants to, that feels that they're under threat by government for coming forward. We know brave Canadians who report wrongdoing or crimes in their workplace often experience consequences like losing their income, health, and happiness, all for speaking the truth. All Canadian workers should feel free to safe reporting workplace crimes and negligence. Absolutely, we support that as New Democrats. And Canada has the worst whistleblowing laws, tied with Lebanon, and the Liberals and the Conservatives teamed up to make sure this doesn't change under Bill C-290, under a number of amendments. Now, we heard from David Hutton, who spoke in the Hill Times. He said that when the Conservatives reform whistleblowing laws under the Harper government, and actually that was Pierre Poilievre was the minister in charge at the time, the leader of the official opposition, that they actually made things worse. So here we are with whistleblower laws tied with Lebanon in worst whistleblower laws in the world. Libs and the cons teamed up to defeat numerous amendments that would have strengthened protections for whistleblowers. They voted against many amendments to Bill C-290 that we put forward and the Bloc put forward. And it's not surprising for the Liberals, their rich friends aren't worried about whistleblowing, so they're not. And Pierre Poilievre, like I said, and the Conservatives, well, they always prop up big bosses, not workers. Ask workers about that. Ask unions about that. Canada needs stronger whistleblowing protections so that there's more transparency and accountability of government and the public service to protect all workers. New Democrats, we're committed to protecting the rights and safety of all workers. And that's why we're pushing to make sure Canada has the strongest whistleblowing protections possible. And the whistleblowing laws are important because of how weak our protections for whistleblowers are. Less wrongdoing will be reported and stopped. Protecting whistleblowers is necessary to protect Canadian lives and security. And whistleblowing reports protect Global's Canada's reputation and relationships. We saw Luc Sabourin. He came and testified at Government Operations Committee. He reported that superiors at Passport Canada were destroying foreign passports, then logging that they had returned them to the foreign embassies. He endured 8 years of harassment and abuse. Hand sanitizer in his company.
Point of order,
threats
Chair.
to his children's safety.
Point of order, Chair.
Just 1 second, Mr. John's got a point of order from Mr. Genuous.
Yeah, Chair, I had hoped that my motion would be able to just proceed quickly to a vote, but
what's your point of order, please?
On the matter of order, I mean, there are parameters around relevance, and I know that the NDP Liberal coalition, if they wanted this whistleblower reform, they could have put it into their coalition deal, but it's not the motion.
Yeah, no,
in front of us. The motion is very specific to certain matters.
Mr. Genuous, this is a period of debate, and I do allow members latitude to express themselves.
It's all going to be tied to, I promise, Mr.
Yeah, no, Mr. John, I'm giving you allowance here. I hope you will illuminate us as to what side of this motion you're on.
Yeah,
I
I
appreciate your overview, but if you could also address the motion as well.
so I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
Go back to Mr. Sovereign, because he endured 8 years of harassment and abuse, and he deserves to have some time here on the floor today. Hand sanitizer in his coffee, threats to his children's safety before losing his career in 2016 and almost losing his life. Whistleblower reports save lives. 1996, Michelle Brill Edwards also lost her career after she reported that Big Pharma was influencing the drug approval process in Canada, endangering Canadian lives. Now, we put forward amendments. Our amendment to allow whistleblowers to go to the public or media in specific situations where, for example, the commissioner isn't dealing with the complaint or decides not to do anything to stop the wrongdoing, both the Liberals and the Conservatives both oppose this. So now whistleblowers are at huge risk if they expose wrongdoing to the Canadian public because of the Conservatives. I'm going to underline that. Interim relief would have protected whistleblowers from punishments like termination as soon as they reported wrongdoing. Instead, we're allowing punishments to happen, then spending years investigating whether they were indeed punished. This is exactly what's going on. Reverse onus. Right now, the whistleblower has to prove reprisal. Example, if they were fired, they have to prove it because they were reported wrongdoing, which is virtually impossible. This amendment would have forced their superiors to prove there was a real reason to fire them. That's the amendment that Conservatives defeated. In other jurisdictions, this brings the chances of success from as low as 1 in 100 to as high as 1 in 3. But the Liberals and Conservatives teamed up to vote against it. They didn't support it. These amendments were contrary to the advice of all experts and whistleblowers who testified and submitted briefs to the Government Operations Committee. And this is relevant right now, Mr. Chair, to what's going on right here. Because some of our amendments were not voted on because both the Liberals and Conservatives spoke against them. Now, we got amendments passed to improve whistleblowers' access to the tribunal. We did a lot of really important work. But I wanted to highlight this because this is exactly relevant to what Mr. Jenius is trying to say about Mr. Utano, Mr. McDonald. If they were really in their corner, they would have supported those amendments on Bill C-290. He also knows full well that back to the Auditor General's report, we're waiting for that report. Then this committee could do its final report and include his concerns in that. This is absolutely, this meeting was unnecessary. It's the charade, it's costing taxpayers money, which doesn't seem to be a problem when it comes to Conservatives at public accounts or at government operations, international trade, at ethics, where they're doing 4 different committees tying them up on this very issue while people are on the streets of our country homeless. I can understand 4 committees tying up committee because of homeless people. That's costing us much more than the economic leakage of arrivecan.
So I'm going to, yes, sorry, I think, Ms. Johns, you are now repeating for the 3rd time something that you have previously said under 2 points of orders. It's not really relevant to the motion.
Fine. I'm done with my time then.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that, Mr. Johns. Ms. Khalid, you have the floor, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I want to thank Mr. Hayes for taking the time to be here today. And I also noted that your opening remarks were word for word exactly the same that you had on October 12th, I think minus the last sentence. So I think, Chair, we all knew that Mr. Hayes does not have much to contribute by way of answering questions in this committee. And I think that we knew that. And now that I see that we've received this table dropped motion, I understand why perhaps we are here today. And I find that to be a little bit disingenuous, Chair. I remember the last meeting that we had in the last year. We had suspended the meeting. All members from all parties had gotten together and worked on a motion on this very topic. We had laid it out. We built consensus because that is what our committee should be doing. And for us to be here, knowing full well, Chair, that we have a witness who is not able to speak on a report that is not going to become, it's not going to be tabled until February 12th, having spent a whole meeting working out a plan on this, and now to go back to another emergency meeting, just like we did on October 12th, again, where we heard from Ms. Hogan, who said, as you know, since this report has not been tabled yet in Parliament, I am not in a position to discuss our findings. And she repeated that consistently throughout the meeting. So my question here, Chair, I would ask is, if we wanted to discuss this motion that is being presented by Mr. Genuis, then why are we wasting Mr. Hayes' time in being here? We could have just called a meeting for this. Better yet, we could have called a meeting at the regular time of our meetings as they come, as they arise, which is literally 3-4 days from
Point of
now.
order, Chair.
So I am speaking
Just, sorry,
to the
Ms.
motion,
Khalid,
Chair.
Mr. McCauley, what's your point of order?
Well, I think we are discussing Mr. Genoves's motion, not Mr. Hayes's attendance at this meeting.
Again, I'm going to, I'll let Ms. Khalid continue, and then we'll hear from other members.
Thanks, Chair. And I just want to highlight some of the points that Mr. Johns had made as well with respect to Mr. Genuis's motion. One, that it seems to be a little bit disingenuous to present it in various committees, knowing that, just being a visiting member of a committee and